In this video I will give you a quick explanation on how you can install the Lens plugin for your server. Of course, first of all you need to download the plugin. After you have downloaded the plugin, you just place it in the plugins folder of your server. You don't have to use a permissions plugin and the economy plugin, but it's recommended to use a permissions plugin because it makes restricting commands and stuff like this a lot easier. Also, if you don't want to use item economy or experience levels as a currency for this economy, you can install Vault and economy plugin that supports Vault, but again, you don't have to. You don't need to use the economy part of the plugin, it's up to you. It's just a recommendation. I just picked a random economy plugin. I don't have any recommendations about which economy plugin you should use. Basically, every economy plugin that supports Vault should be fine. After you have done this and have your plugins ready, you need to start the server one time to let the config files for Lens generate. After the server has started, you can navigate into the plugins folder, then into the Lens folder. Here you can find some major configuration files. The most important one is config.yml. This file has about 1000 lines, so I'm not going to explain every option, just two options of this file that are major options that probably most servers need to change depending on their language and which words they have. So that being said, there are many options. By default they are set to recommended values. You theoretically don't need to change any option of this file. But if you want to make your server more special, make it outstanding, you are free to change a lot of options and configure stuff to your likings. You can disable many features of this plugin if you want to keep it as simple as possible. You can, of course, change stuff like land expiration and whatever. There are many options. Maybe I will do a dedicated video about some major options in this file. But in general, if you want to change the language, by default English is included in the plugin file. If you want to access community translations for other languages, you need to join our Discord server to download these. If you want to allow players to claim in another world, you just add this world to this list. Just like this, world_2 would allow them to claim in the world 2 and world_2. Of course, if you want to allow only some players to claim in world_2, you can use per world permissions to restrict the claiming commands for these players in a specific world, but that's up to you. You can also define a specific minimum claim depth and height, so you could restrict the claim height from 30 to 256. That's up to you. You can also use -30. If nothing is set, then the claim height will be from bottom to top. There are also some other files, as I said. web.yml lets you configure thin map, square map and blue map. At this time, only these three plugins are supported for maps. Maybe in the future more, but in this file you can configure them. You can also use all three of them together, but that's up to you. Another file is wars.yml and nations.yml. If you want to disable wars or nations, you just open the file and set enable to false. Roles.yml lets you configure default flags and default roles. You can also hide specific flags from the menu by editing the display list. For roles you can set their name, their default icon, which roles they should have by default. You can also add more default roles. There's also a dedicated documentation page about this. In levels.yml you can configure land and nation levels. Of course, also this is completely optional. You can disable levels altogether. You can configure requirements and attributes of a level here. Third-party plugins can also hook into lands and define their own requirements and levels. In events.yml you can execute commands at specific events that happen in lands. So for example, a player claims a chunk and you can execute some commands. As you can see, this also supports conditions. There's also a dedicated page about this. You can achieve a lot by using this file. Then we also have categories.yml. This is just a bunch of categories lands can set, so they can express what a land is about. You can also disable this or add more categories as you wish. For example, the looking for members category allows other players to request membership at this land. Of course, the land can also manually invite other players to join them, but using this feature, players can express to the land that they would like to be part of their land, and the land can decide if they want to accept their membership request or deny it. After we have done this, we can proceed with the permission setup. Of course, if you make any changes to the files, don't forget to save them and restart your server. The plugin has quite a few permissions, which can be used to restrict certain aspects of lands. So, of course, we have numbered permissions which allow you to restrict claim sizes, how many lands a player can own, how many lands a player can be trusted in, and stuff like this. But we of course also have permissions for each command, teleportation permissions, toggling flags. We also have administrator and bypass permissions. There are quite a few and you can utilize them to customize the experience of your players, but we also have a recommended permission setup page. There you can find a list of permissions which should be fine to set on regular servers, so you can use this list to get started quickly. For example, we have lands.command.wildcard. This just allows players to execute all player-related commands. Same goes for nations and wars. This does not include administrator permissions. For teleportation, this just allows players to execute to individual chunks they claimed and so on. Toggling flags here, and at the bottom of the page you can find a list of all these permissions. So these numbers here for the recommended permissions are just examples. For your server it might be different, so this is just an example. Command permissions, maybe your server doesn't want players to execute certain commands, so you would negate this command permission or just use the individual command permissions, because there's a permission for each command. And yeah, you would basically copy this permission and set it into your permissions plugin. In my case, I will just set this permission in my default group, so each player gets it. But that's up to you. And I've already done this, so for this video I won't add every permission. After you set the permissions to your liking, you can join the server. You may have noticed that I received 4 items on my first join on the server. These items are given to players that join the server for the first time and just helps them getting started with claiming and introduce them into the claiming system without some annoying commands. Of course, you can also disable them in the configuration files or configure them to be different or on different slots, whatever. With the first item you can claim a selection of chunks. With left click you select the first corner and with right click the second corner. When I'm completing this selection, it will automatically claim the selection for me because I don't have any lands. So This just helps new players to get started easily without executing commands. As you can see, it automatically claimed this selection for me. It didn't cost me any money because I configured claims to be free of charge in the configuration files. Of course, this is up to you. And as you can see, my claim is outlined with particles. You can also configure them. With the second item, I can view information about the claim. It's basically the same as typing /view. With the third item, I can create a temporary camp. This camp will expire after a specified amount of time, which can be configured in the configuration files. This camp cannot be extended. That's the difference to regular claims. This camp expires and can't be extended. So upon placement, I get a message that I created a temporary camp for me and it will expire in 1 day. Of course, the item hasn't been taken out of my inventory because I'm in creative mode. Yeah, that's a camp and it's also outlined. You can specify the radius it should claim in the configuration file, so you can specify the size of the claim. With the last item, I can extend regular claims by just placing this item in the neighboring chunk and it will claim it. Yes, that's basically base introduction into claiming. And when players claim their land, they can execute lands or /lands menu and it will open a menu for them. I have 2 lands, 1 camp and 1 regular land. Of course, if I have only 1 land, it will automatically open the menu for this land. You can also create 3-dimensional sub-areas. You can trust players, ban players, and view send invites. You can add allies and enemies. You can view your level progress and rewards of it. You can view your inbox so you don't miss any important events for your land. So if, example, you paid upkeep, you receive taxes and stuff like this. You can also view some statistics and when you need to pay taxes or upkeep. I am, as the landowner, of course, don't need to pay any taxes, but I need to pay upkeep to the server. Also, you can disable upkeep and taxes as a server administrator if you don't want your server to use this system. You can teleport to your land spawn. You can toggle natural flags such as animal spawning. You can add new rows, toggle row flags, configure what members can do, like breaking blocks, placing blocks, stuff like this. And you can also set up taxes. You can also set up taxes for 3-dimensional sub-areas. You can also change the land name, set the title when player enters your land, which they will see. You can change the category and the icon of the land. So that's it for this video. It was just a small introduction and basic setup. Maybe I will do some future videos with more in-depth explanations of some features.